Whips cracked in the backs of the vulnerable. Screams pierced the air as slaves collapsed under crushing loads. Moses, heart pounding, muttered a prayer as he felt the pain of his people. He turned to find Aaron. God's command burned within. The mission had begun.
Take me to Pharaoh, please. Tell him Moses is here to see him. Aaron, let us meet this ruler of Egypt as God has commanded.
Moses and Aaron entered Pharaoh's grand court, where towering stone columns stretched toward the ceiling, and tapestries adorned with symbols of Egyptian gods swayed gently in the breeze. Pharaoh sat upon his throne, robed in opulent finery, his eyes narrowing as the two Israelites approached. His advisors, nobles, and magicians stood around him, curious and tense, knowing that Moses had come to demand the release of the Israelites once again. "Pharaoh," Moses began, his voice steady, "the God of Israel commands you, let his people go, that they may worship him in the wilderness." Pharaoh smirked, unmoved by Moses' words. "You bring me these demands," he sneered, "but where is the proof of this so-called God of yours? Show me something that I might believe he holds any power here in Egypt." Moses nodded to Aaron, who gripped his staff and stepped forward, calm but resolute. At God's command, Aaron lifted his staff high and then threw it down before Pharaoh. Instantly, the wooden rod twisted, writhed, and stretched, its texture hardening, its surface glistening and scaly. Its forked tongue flicking toward the throne, and the Egyptian court gasped, some stepping back in fear. Pharaoh's expression shifted, his amusement turning to wary contemplation. Yet he raised a hand and called upon his magicians, wise men trained in ancient arts who gathered before the throne with their own rods in hand. "If this is a trick of your God," Pharaoh said coldly, "then surely my own men can do the same." With solemn concentration, the magicians stepped forward and one by one cast down their rods. In a display of practiced sorcery, their rods transformed as well, slithering and stretching into serpents, each one twisting across the floor, hissing and baring its fangs. Pharaoh's face lit with triumph, his confidence restored, while murmurs of awe filled the court. But Moses and Aaron did not flinch. Then, as the watching courtiers leaned forward, a gasp broke the silence. Aaron's serpent, larger and more powerful than any of the magician's creations, reared up, its eyes locked on the other serpent. With swift, decisive strikes, it lunged, swallowing each one in turn, its jaws snapping shut over the writhing forms of the magician's serpents. Pharaoh's men watched, horrified and helpless, as their serpents disappeared, consumed by Aaron's. In moments, Aaron's rod lay alone, coiled triumphantly at the center of the court, its power undeniable. The rod seemed to shimmer as it transformed back, once more a simple staff resting in Aaron's hand. Silence filled the court as Pharaoh stared, his face darkening with suppressed fury. Though he had witnessed the power of Israel's God, Pharaoh hardened his heart. He turned his back on Moses and Aaron, a bitter refusal tightening his voice as he ordered them to leave. Moses felt the words of God stirring within him. In the stillness of the court, he raised his staff, holding it high as he spoke with a voice stronger than he had ever known. "The God of our fathers has commanded it. Let his people go, or he will bring wonders upon Egypt that you have never seen." Pharaoh's anger was fueled. His eyes narrowed, and he waved a dismissive hand. "Go back to your people and tell them to work harder. Let them suffer no rest for these foolish dreams of freedom." He called to his guards, who herded Moses and Aaron roughly out of the palace. From a distance, Pharaoh smiled, unaware that the wrath of the Almighty was about to descend, bringing terror and destruction unlike anything the empire had ever known.